My zero started with breakfast at the Red Moose. We sat near a couple that were getting breakfast while passing through town. They were grilling a PCT hiker with lots of questions. The hiker was also getting breakfast. I got no questions. My pack was in the room. I had showered, shaved, and was wearing town clothes. I guess I just didn't look like a hiker anymore. After breakfast, we found a geocache nearby, hiked to some falls I'd passed the day before. Now, finding a place to do my laundry proved to be challenging. The nearest laundry was closed because they were upgrading their machines, so we had to drive all the way to Portola. In Portola, we did laundry, had Subway for lunch, and even picked up breakfast for the next day. Dinner was a giant sandwich from Sierra City Country Store we shared on the hotel's balcony. We watched the comings and goings of Sierra City as the sun set. First day back on the trail was going to be a big one. In the first 8 miles, I would ascend 3,000 feet. So many switchbacks. Looking back, a few switchbacks looked like Zorro had taken his blade to the mountain. After the initial climb, I would cruise around 7,000 feet, going up and down the rest of the day. Total elevation gain for the day was 5,000. About 10 miles in, I came across a family doing trail maintenance on the shores of one of the Tamarack lakes. The father was on this traverse cutting steps into the snow just for me. It was lunchtime after I crossed the traverse, so I soaked my feet and ate something at the lake proper. I passed a little stream towards the end of the day where the fish were hopping. I did about 25 miles, and as I wrapped up the first day, I entered the first serious snow. I specifically stopped where I did because a reportedly dangerous traverse was just ahead and it should wait until morning. I camped on the side of a gravel road and got going at 7 a.m. Right away, I met Sunny D. I would leapfrog with him and his hiking buddy Beach all the way to Old Station. Not long after Sunny D passed me, I came to the sketchy traverse. I evaluated and decided I could just go straight down the mountain and skip it entirely. It was a common strategy I employed with Nate in the last section. Just like that, I was done with the unprecedented snow of 2023. Past some plants with some crazy bulbous fruit. As I entered the Plumas National Forest, I also skirted a burn area. On the non-bird side of the trail, I saw fresh bear tracks in mud near a fancy weather data collecting hut. When I camped that night, I hung my food. The next morning, I began walking through the biggest burn area of the trail and in California history. I'd be in this burn area for over 100 miles. In some of the burn areas, the plants bounced back with a vengeance, making it difficult to walk and even stay on the trail. That's not to say there weren't awesome things to see, like this bridge over the Feather River and the raging river below. Lots of butterflies. And a pre-butterfly. Mini Christmas trees growing quickly without the shade cast by the now dead old growth trees. I took a side road to Bucks Lake to enjoy some civilization. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't hoping to be offered a ride, but the extra mileage is worth the Gatorade and snacks at the country store, a swim in the lake, and an awesome meal at the Bucks Lake Resort. The resort had something called a Pacific Crest Trail on the pizza menu, so I had to get that. I got it with a salad, which was a treat. The best part of eating at the resort was sitting outside while being serenaded by a duo of musicians. Management said if I hung around until later, I could get a ride back to the trail. At the appointed time, the owner's daughter gave me a ride to the Bucks Summit trailhead. I camped right there at the trailhead, as many others did. In the morning, I saw Sunny D and Beach were among the others who camped at the trailhead. There was also a couple who I saw eating at the resort the night before. I got going at sunrise the next day. I ran into some snow patches, but if you just kept going straight, you could usually pick up the trail on the other side. In this stretch, I saw bicycle tracks in the snow and later met a hiker who said he thought he found the wallet of said bicyclist. The hiker was torn. He wanted to return the wallet, but he was annoyed because bicyclists aren't allowed on the PCT. On this day, I reached mile 1273, and because I skipped 273 miles in the Sierras, it meant I completed 1,000 miles. One of the most famous books about hiking the PCT is Wild by Cheryl Strayed. She only hiked 1,000 miles, so I felt like it was quite an accomplishment. Although I was still traveling through burn area, you'd sometimes get a green patch, and at vistas you could always look out and see at least some green. In this stretch, where I was following Sunny D, the view looked like desolation wilderness on a regular snow year. While hiking down to Belden, I could see the hills that I'd have to climb up later that day and the next. The elevation of Belden was so low, I had to worry about poison oak. The entire rest of the day I saw it on the side of the trail. Frogs. At the bottom of the valley, you had to cross railroad tracks to get to Belden. Belden is like a tiny town, but it's really just an RV park. They have a restaurant, store, cabins and rooms for rent, a camping area, showers, and a recreation area. Everything was closed when I arrived, so I went swimming in the shadow of the Feather River Bridge. I air dried in the dappled sunlight under the trees near the swim area and waited. When the restaurant opened, I got a meal with Sunny D and Beach. I wanted to stay, but all the rooms were taken by a crew working the storm damage to the road on the other side of the bridge. That same storm damage took out their Wi-Fi. There wasn't much of an advantage to staying, so I figured I'd get a handful of miles and therefore knock off 2,000 feet of the next day's elevation. Just as I was leaving, the couple from the trailhead wandered in. I stayed at a great little campsite at Myrtle Creek that even had a fire pit. I didn't use the pit though. I was too exhausted after a 25-mile day. Just 5 miles in the next day, I hit another milestone. I left the Sierras and entered the Cascades. From here on, the mountains of the Pacific Crest Trail were created by volcanic activity and not plate tectonics. The burn zone was really getting me down. Another 25 miles, but right there in the middle of the day, I came to a small meadow with a ring of green trees around it. I'm against graffiti, obviously, but this made me laugh. How do you pronounce butte? At one point I noticed some PCT markers that had the number 2000 on them. I thought perhaps they were just drastically rounding down the mileage, like it was one of the few trails in the US that were over 2,000 miles. But no, 2000, as it turns out, is the number of the PCT in the National Trails Registry. Towards the end of the day, I came to a massive clearing where deadfalls were cut down for safety and maybe for eventual harvesting. The clearing looked like a giant game of pickup sticks. Just an hour into the next day, I came to the PCT midpoint. Sunny D and Beach were there taking a break and enjoying the milestone as I arrived. Sunny D was nice enough to take my picture at the monument. Fortunately, the monument is made out of cement. It was in the middle of the Dixie Fire. The Dixie Fire was the largest in California history and the reason I will spend a week in a burn zone. Relatedly, the Soldier Creek footbridge was taken out by fire. It's hard to imagine what this meadow looked like as the fire swept across it, completely consuming the wooden bridge. As I came to Highway 36, I finally was seeing piles of burnt trees stacked and ready for transportation to lumber mills. More of this should be done to eliminate the danger of deadfall and to protect healthy forests from being logged. Here's a stump of a tree that was harvested. Note the core of the tree's wood is healthy and perfect for lumber. Clearly, burning just a little of the outside is enough to kill the tree. Here I was having fun walking through the powdery dirt at a road crossing. Little did I know how common this type of dirt would become as I finished California and worked my way through Oregon. The dirt gets everywhere. Shoes and socks are no barrier to such fine particles. Lassen Peak off in the distance. I camped just shy of the national park boundary because in the park you need a bear can and I wasn't carrying one. The boys and Julie visited Lassen Park years earlier and now I wish I had gone with them. The damage due to the Dixie Fire was remarkable. I still got to see evidence of volcanic activity. A geyser off in the distance, and this pond. I was excited to visit Drakesbad in the park. It seemed like the perfect trail stop. I was going to shower, eat breakfast when my laundry ran, and get back on the trail with a full stomach. I guess because of all the dead trees, the adjacent Warner Valley campground was closed, and if the campground was closed, there was no reason to open Drakesbad for the season. I should have checked far out comments before letting my hopes get so high. I had a disappointing breakfast at a campground picnic table. Although the far out comments said all the pit toilets were closed, I found one open. So there's that. The many bridges in the park burned. For some reason, the park rangers placed blue tarps over the burnt wood and sometimes put up orange barriers. You still had to cross the creeks that the bridges used to span, so I don't know what the point was. I had lunch and a swim at Lower Twin Falls. The lake was a dragonfly haven. I met a fellow thru-hiker named Splat. She swam there too, and I would leapfrog with her all the way to Old Station. 19 miles of the PCT are in Lassen, so I had to do all that, obviously, but I had to keep going because there was no campsite near the northern border. I found a good grove of trees to set up in and would only have 6 miles to Old Station the next day. This stretch would tie for the longest on the trail without a resupply. I skipped Chester because I got meals at Bucks Lake and Belden and was expecting a meal at Drakesbad. I ate the last of my food and settled in my tent. At dusk and out of the blue, Nate rolled up. I caught up to him and actually passed him while he was resupplying in Chester. It was great to see him. He set up his tent nearby and we talked quite a bit. The next morning we walked to Old Station together. We ran into Splat, so the three of us got to the Old Station Cafe at the same time. Sunny D and Beach were already there getting breakfast when we arrived, so I introduced them to Nate. We were lucky JJ's Cafe was even open. They are closed for some of the week. We arrived on Thursday, the first day of their week. I got a big breakfast and a beer for dessert while I waited for Julie. Unfortunately, there was no cell service, so she couldn't call or text for additional details. Unfortunately, the eating area in the cafe is not easily seen from the road, so she kept driving back and forth on the 3-mile stretch of Highway 44 that makes up Old Station. Eventually, I spotted the car, said a quick goodbye, grabbed my bag, and was on my way home. As noted in the last video, Julie's mom passed away, so going home was bittersweet. It was great to be warm, dry, and fed. It was also great to see family, which included my boys all dressed up. But seeing Julie, my brother-in-laws, and my father-in-law dealing with such a huge loss was heartbreaking. My parents even showed up to support Julie. Trail stop checklist. Belden. Check. Old Station. Check. In this stretch, I fully skipped a trail stop for the first time. Chester. No check.